So first and foremost, congratulations on a very good new album. How did you approach the writing of Audio Visceral? What were some of the inspirations for it?
Well, I think the whole process of this album has kind of been the whole process of the band up till now.
Right.
A few of these ideas that later became tracks on the album were things that were really things that I think Patrick and I had sort of started to play with before we even really were a band. I have very distinct memories of Patrick and I sitting in his studio drinking beers in the middle of the night, listening to Neurotic Fish, and kind of really just screwing around on keyboards, and that was really what kind of later led to the band coming together. So our writing process has been very varied. Some of them have been kind of more recent pieces, of course. We've really been working on this particular set of tracks for about the last year, recording and producing, and just kind of got there, and we kind of jump around in our writing process a lot. Some of it's been many years, some of it was written very quickly.
Well, and there was a certain bit of stuff that was influenced by some pretty turbulent emotional times for both of us at the beginning, and then there was a lot of songs written, probably 20 or 30.
Yeah,
I think.
So we probably did 25 or 30 songs.
And we'd write a set of songs and kind of go through, and honestly, the first two times through, and we dumped most of it, and it seemed to be the key for us was when we started playing live and really going out and road testing stuff, it started to finally evolve, and
I think it was kind of cemented everything.
Yeah, it was probably about 6 months into it we realized kind of where we were at and what we were going to do.
Right.
And it took us a little while to realize what we sounded like.
Yeah, I mean, and the odd thing was it had a lot more of a commercial pop influence on the production side than I think both of us expected.
Right.
Which I think works well with some of the darker parts that Mark contributed to the album. So
I was upset when we started writing.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
One half of the songs is upset. The other half is about Dune, right? No. Okay, sorry, that was one song.
That's one song.
Okay. What themes, if any, did you pursue when you wrote the album?
As I think, unfortunately, a lot. I don't want to say unfortunately. That's a bad thing. That's a bad choice of words. A lot of us in this genre of music, as a general statement, all of us kids that sit in black in a dank, dark basement together and listen to really loud music, we focus on a lot of dark things and a lot of emotional turmoils in our lives and things that I think a lot of people focus upon. And when we really started working on this record seriously and kind of became a real project together, I was dealing with a lot of emotional turmoil, as was Patrick. And I think a lot of it came through in our writing. It may be a little premature, but I think when we do this next record after this one, there's going to be some very drastic changes in theme.
Maybe being a bit more upbeat.
I think being a little bit more upbeat and also focusing in different places. A lot of this record is introspective and is about pain. And a lot of this next record is really going to be more about conviction and resolution. Not to get ahead of ourselves here, but the Audio Visceral is I don't want to say is just totally about pain, but a lot of
there's a lot of distance in there and dissonance and
there's a lot of coming to terms with things emotionally that I think a lot of it tends to focus on as well. Not necessarily on the actual aspect of pain, but on the accepting a situation as it is and trying to be pragmatic about it and trying to survive. I think everyone can relate to having moments in their lives where, as much as it may be a bit melodramatic, feeling that the world was ending around you, and a lot of the stuff on Audio Visceral reflects a lot of those feelings, I think.
Well, and I know for me it was an interesting process because, there was some integral parts of my life that had changed pretty drastically, and spent a lot of the first year that we were together traveling around the third world for work, South America, Africa, Asia. So it was a constant kind of discordian kind of thing.
It was very disconnected.
I was back and forth between Denver and then, South Africa or Nigeria or Colombia, and it was a lot of different pictures. Relationships ending, new relationships beginning, but at the same time, we were kind of looking to write some pretty upbeat dancing music at the same time. So it became very disjointed in a way. I mean, dark, but emotionally pushing at the same time. So
He's a drug lord, by the way. That's why he went to all those
okay.
places.
That explains the travel.
Patrick is a drug
I
lord.
see. Is he a drug lord or just a drug mule?
No, he's a drug
He
lord.
never gets his own hands dirty.
He has a house full of naked women who, process all of his drugs for him
They
and
actually
package
refer to
it.
him as El Surgeon in certain parts of South America. We don't actually. That actually might be incriminating.
Let's not tell my
Might have to
employer
edit that out.
Talk about that. Yeah.
So now we know where the Synapse money comes from.
Precisely.
Wait, we had money?
No.
Sorry.
You're a terrible drug lord.
I know.
If Patrick is a drug lord, he's just not a very good one.
Not so great at keeping secrets.
No.
He just told us where like 5 of his hookups were.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of the vocals. I love the duality of the female and male vocals together. And I also love that you went for a clean tone on a lot of the vocals as opposed to, the harsh, distorted stuff that a lot of bands are doing these days. What inspired you to keep the vocals clean like that?
Actually, I want to really speak to that because I was a gigantic Nazi about it through the entire production process. So I've been in bands with both of these people, separately and together. And one of the things I loved about both of them, excluding musical ability, is that they both have an ability to sing very well. And I'm not going to say it's rare in the scene, but it's rare that people choose to showcase it, especially with darker sounding stuff at times. And I really enjoyed the sound of both of their voices together. One, they mesh up very well with very little production magic in the middle. And two, we really wanted to do something that was honest. I mean, I like hard stuff. We all do, but I don't think it would have had the impact that it did without them kind of.
Well, and when we were just kind of, I wouldn't even say working. I don't want to say not as a band yet, but when we were really just kind of screwing around in the studio.
When I locked you in the vocal booth in the warehouse.
Well, we played with a lot of different things. I mean, up to and including full-on, Cookie Monster distortion. We were playing with things because we were really just experimenting.
Yeah, but we kind of all looked at each other and said,
this needs to be human.
straight,
This needs to be clean. I've already mentioned Patrick and I's love for Neurotic Fish, I'm actually very, I don't know, shy is the right word as a vocalist. I nitpick things to death. And I distinctly remember Patrick, as you mentioned,
he needs to be slapped late.
He locks me in a vocal booth, and he actually locked me in it, and he wouldn't let me out until I did what he told me, and he wouldn't let me listen to any of the takes. He's just like, no, shut up and do what you're told. And that's actually how a lot of the final takes for Audio Visceral were recorded. And it's always interesting as a vocalist to hear yourself in playback. You nitpick things to death. I'm very jealous of Sarah, actually, because Sarah gets everything right in like 2 takes in the studio. She's like, I'm done, and that's it. And, I take hours and hours and hours to get shit right. And everybody's like, no, it's fine, man. It sounds good. And, no, fuck you. It sounds terrible. Mm-hmm. And, so we do that process. And
But, I mean, production-wise, there's some tricks. There's a lot of heavy compression.
Sure.
There's some modulation, but, I mean, in essence, mixing the record, we wanted something that was going to come out as what we do live, what we do in the studio.
And emotionally, we wanted it to be processed in terms of studio magic, quote unquote, in terms of compression and reverb and things as such. But we wanted the
clear,
voices
intimate,
to still sound natural and intimate.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least think we did really well on that.
I mean, I can say from this perspective, when I mixed the album, I wanted it to sound like what it sounds like in my monitor when I'm playing keyboard. What I hear,
exactly.
When I hear these two guys playing live, because that to me is kind of everything. Like if I can capture that, and I hope everyone loves it, but I really don't care if they do in the long run, because
it's important
that's kind
to
of
me to sound good either way. I mean,
one of our initial indications that really later it really shaped the direction that we went vocally, I think, was that we were very lucky and have a very wonderful and talented audio engineer named Mark Passmore, shout out, who supports us live and whatnot. And
he said, stop singing through all that crap. And
the first couple of live gigs, he pointed out to us, he said, he brought us over to the console after sound check, and we looked at things, and he goes, look how little I actually have to manipulate things to get you and Sarah to sound right together. And I think that was really kind of the first real step towards we need to back off and be more human and be more natural.
Well, we were in a band together before, and the vocalist in that band and Sarah we couldn't do anything to make a mesh.
It was headbutting.
Complete.
Right. Well, and that's a
vocal
point that I
soup,
wanted to
right?
make also, is that I've worked with a lot of other vocalists, and I have to
We got
say
very lucky
I
that we
feel
mesh.
extremely lucky that our voices, I feel, mesh so well together.
It's pleasant as an engineer to not have to hack things to death to make it sound right. I mean, I spent more time focusing on kind of, making you guys more separated than blending, which I think is probably a good
Because we can kind of disappear inside
indication
each
of how
other.
things are. When you're working more on just getting the little nuances out as opposed to, holy crap, how do I make this sound good? And that's never been a problem, and we've been really lucky from the beginning.
Yeah.
I would have to agree.
Okay. So turning to the music side now, what gear are you currently using to write your music? Are you,
Yes.
Do you use
How long
soft
do you
synth, or
have for
still
that
use
question?
hardware?
Both, really. That kind of goes across the board.
Well, speaking of audio visceral, there's some software. There's a lot of Virus TI.
There's a lot of virus.
We both own Moog. We both own varying analog stuff.
Roland Analog and
I'm an analog
Dave
whore.
Smith.
Like, the
Oh,
more I
okay,
can get
sure.
my hands on, the happier I am.
Right.
Patrick is a gear slut.
Yeah.
Hey, it's under $100,000 now. I mean,
www.gearsluts.com. That's with a Z.
I think the most important thing to answer that question is that there's a lot of in the box and out of the box production on the album. I could do it either way, and so could Mark. I don't think that's a limiting factor anymore.
Yeah, I was
I
going to
think
say
it's more of a flavor kind of a thing.
these days. I mean, there is some unbelievably good software out there.
Diva.
Yeah, Diva, Tyrell, Lush 101.
Yeah.
There are some amazing things available. I mean, really, if you really had to, you could sit down with a laptop and produce an amazing album. I think engineering knowledge and production experience and experimentation are far
Well, and to
more
give you
valuable.
a good idea, Mark is probably more software than I am.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more hardware.
I'm lazy.
I have a console and a lot of analog stuff, and it all comes down to kind of what sounds good in the mix, and I think it really has more to do with what inspires you.
Except for a Moog filter. You can't fake a Moog filter.
And
we found
Patrick
that out
would
that
buy
show
a
this
new
week.
analog synth before he would buy a new kidney, just so you know.
He really would.
Or food.
Gearsluts.com.
All right. Do you think that Synapse has a message to get across to people, or is it just about enjoying the music and taking what they want from the songs?
I think it's neither.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we kind of hover somewhere on the median on that. I don't like to discuss the meanings behind specific lyrics or specific passages with people unless I'm very close to them.
Right.
And a lot
Legal
of the time.
repercussions.
What's that?
I said legal repercussions.
Legal repercussions. If every light is blind. I think that if I know someone well enough to discuss those things with them, they probably don't need me to. But I also think that it's very important. I'm a big believer in art being a very subjective thing, as a
Right.
general rule. And if someone, if I can touch someone emotionally, however that happens, if they take something from it that helps them or helps them deal with something or that they relate to or whatnot, I mean, I'm humbled as an artist when that happens. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, I'm always happier to hear somebody else's interpretation of a track.
Absolutely.
As far as politics, that doesn't factor into it.
We really try to stay more personal, I think.
It's not that kind of band, and I
Right.
don't want to discuss it to a certain degree. I mean, but I can tell you as a band, we do more charity gigs than we don't.
Yep.
Actually, we make it a point to not turn them down. So, I mean, I guess if you want to take a message from that, there's one there. But in general, we write about the things that are personal to us.
We do not have words printed on a banner behind us.
Yeah. And don't really want to. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that kind of band.
There's not an underlying
and-
underlying political thing.
yeah.
We try to stay more personal, and I mean, specific pieces perhaps have meanings behind them. I mean, a lot of what will become our next record is a lot more about, as I mentioned, emotional conviction and about surviving and,
Right.
and about realizing that the person that is responsible for making your life what you want it to be is you. Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're talking about the next record already, but that's really what's going to focus there. Whereas
Stop
I
making
said,
promises you can't keep.
This first record was a lot more about introspection.
And I think for me, bottom line, I really enjoy the music that we do. I absolutely love to play it. It makes me really happy. And if I can pass that on to somebody else and have them enjoy it the way that I do, which hopefully they enjoy it more because I like to nitpick myself.
Well, I think there's a feeling for us that
Then,
this is, in a way, it's become a little bit larger than ourselves because, like, I don't know, in a way the songs don't belong to us anymore because they've evolved enough on stage where sometimes you feel like you want to change something and you kind of realize you can't because that's...
Well, and we love to perform.
There's people
live.
that expect things, and
yeah, very much.
That's kind of our job, right? I mean,
we love to play live, and we love to connect with a live audience. When we met you guys actually in Austin, very much. That's. I don't want to say that's the primary focus of the act, but I mean, playing live is very important for us, and we put a lot of effort into live rehearsals and a lot of effort into making sure we sound correct live.
That's my favorite part.
And
there's an importance in
nothing
recognizing that you're here to entertain people. Like if you want people to pay to come and see you, to take time out of their day. I mean,
being able to connect with
music
people live is really what it's all about.
So overwhelming now. There's so much out there. I kind of feel like you have a responsibility, just like if you were a visual artist, to the audience.
Right.
To give them something to come see you other than recorded music, because that's ubiquitous and easily accessible now. So.
Right. Well, speaking of the performance aspect of the live show, you guys seem to put a lot of thought and effort into your live shows. Why is the live experience so important to you?
As I mentioned, the connection, connecting with an audience. I'm a very big fan of when musicians and artists connect with people. I not to mention a cliche here, Covenant is a fantastic example. I've seen Covenant play in theaters and environments in Europe with millions of dollars worth of equipment behind them in terms of lighting and sound, and I've seen them play in a dirty, dingy club in Colorado. Or
Detroit. Same deal. Yeah.
And the thing that I took away from that I found just to be inspiring is that their performance was so incredible that it didn't matter. They were the same.
Well, it's one of the things that's lost now because, I mean, there's a certain emphasis, especially in our genre, that gets misplaced with live performances. People don't, and I hate to say it this way, feel like they have a responsibility to the people that they think should come out and pay them to be on stage. And
well, I mean, we play a lot of covers live, which is something that almost never happens in our scene. But I always kind of came up expecting that was something that a live band did. Even if they never released those covers recorded, you played covers live, especially as a younger act.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we definitely put a lot of effort into what we do live, and a lot of that comes from a respect for our crowd aspect of I want to give somebody something beyond listening to our CD really loud while we bounce around.
Well, it comes back to that core aspect of a live show is always a live show. It's not a CD on tape. It's not, forgive me from saying this, faking your way through playing keyboards or anything else. I mean, at a core...
That's on the record. We play live.
Yeah, for real, for better or for worse.
Well, and I mean, as far as from a technological standpoint or a production Nazi standpoint, as we have been called, I come from a professional theatrical and sound reinforcement background. Patrick's done live sound for many, many years as well, and it's just kind of I think a lot of it again stays with a basis of respect for your audience.
Well, what's the point? I mean, really, what's the point?
People are spending their hard-earned money to come into a dirty, dingy basement to see you play live, and they deserve every ounce that you can give them in every aspect that you can give them. It's.
I guess
no one wants to pay good money to go.
Sorry. It's kind of the whole point in the end of it. I mean, like if you can go out.
Well, that's
and play your instruments and connect with an audience. Then, what the fuck's the point
that's
of the
what you
rest
do.
of it?
I mean, once the song's written, for the most part, it's written. Like, what the hell else are we gonna do with our time?
Oh yeah, and nobody wants to pay to go see anybody, to hear exactly what they hear on the album.
I remember the first time I saw The Cure.
Ridiculousness.
It was an amazing show, but I really could have tacked a poster on my wall And with the
Major
CD,
chords,
it
but
would
we're
have been a very similar experience.
sad. Major chords.
And the first time I saw
I
Depeche
love The
Mode
Cure.
was the absolute opposite. It was a religious experience. It was a live show to a degree that I don't even know how to explain, and that's what's always made me want to go out and play music. That part of it, not the stage and the lights they're cool and they make the point, but it's all bullshit unless you make a connection with an audience.
Getting back to the recording process a little bit here. What other music inspired you while you were writing the album?
I knew he was going to ask that. All right.
That's the least favorite
I'm gonna
question
give the
I
I'm gonna
think
give the
ever,
disclaimer
'cause we
right
did-
now.
yeah.
Synapse listens to pop music sometimes, and because I know we're gonna
with
get
that.
the I know we're gonna get a little bit of flack for this in some regard in some circles. Lady Gaga is awesome, and you just need to accept it. I think
Yeah.
really is.
I spent the winter listening to Covenant, Iron Maiden, and like the last Lady Gaga album, and they're all valuable as far as production. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, the last thing I listen to when I'm producing music is EBM,
Right.
because I really don't. I mean, it just kills it. Like, I don't want to wind up trying to be like someone else. I find if you listen to what you want, you wind up being a little bit more honest with yourself about what you can and can't do,
Right.
as opposed to what you can and can't fake,
Absolutely.
which is hard to swallow some days because
I mean,
It
not
doesn't always
to
measure
say that
up.
we don't listen to music in the scene. We very heavily. I don't want to be
Yeah,
the
we all
band
have-
sitting here saying I don't listen to industrial.
no,
But
because we listen to
we
all,
very
but-
much do. But I think really what we need to get at is that we listen to a very wide variety. Variety. That's not a word. We listen to a very wide variety of music in our personal lives.
Well, I think the important part is I'm not going to apologize for the influence that something else has on me. I mean,
Well,
Absolutely.
and how are you not going to benefit from a wider range of
yeah.
influences?
I mean, the more I listen to, the more I learn, the more I mix, the more I learn, the more I write, the more I learn, and it's all important. So, as a band, it's all over the board. I mean, I think you could probably hit everything except country. I know we both
I love
listen to
Garth
gangster
Brooks, dude.
rap, so like,
What was his like rock name? Was it?
Garth Brooks had a rock name?
production-wise
Yeah.
on the album,
I want to say
there were
Chris
some
Angel, but that's
defined
that fakey
influences.
magician guy.
Yeah.
it's a lot of the more modern, slicker sounding EBM
Right.
and slicker sounding pop. I mean, me and Mark have both been at this for a while, so we like things to sound polished. We like it to sound clean, but I think musically, and this probably has a lot more to do with the fact that the songs have been there for the last 3 years and kind of lingering and desperately desiring to be finished. I know for me, there was a certain amount of outside influence that stopped after a while, and it became more of a, how do we translate this to the absolute best version that we can think of?
Right. So I'm sure everybody had their own influences that they brought into the recording process. Do those all kind of get incorporated in when you're writing? Is it a collaborative effort?
Song by song?
Song by song, really. I mean, Patrick and I do most of the writing, but I mean, like, we'll do everything from, we'll come up with ideas separately and be like, hey, what do you think? You know, and take ideas to each other, and then sometimes they get messed with a little bit. Sometimes they really don't get messed with at all. And then we'll go as far
Sometimes
as
live they get...
Yeah, well, I mean, when we did Memory,
Yeah.
Memory.
Yeah, that was one you were going to throw out.
it was just a bass line and a kick drum when we were just going through stuff, and Pat just kind of opened the file when we were kind of going through stuff that we were going to develop further, and I was like, oh, no, trash it. He's like, no, it's a good bass line. No, it's a good idea. And in the space of probably an hour and a half, we had fleshed out the rest of it. That song came together so quickly, and it had gotten fleshed out into the song that it became, and it was just, I mean, that was probably the most rapid we've ever done anything.
Yeah, but you know what? Void was like, it changed over 8 months of playing live shows, and
Well,
we were
and
living
that's
under
the
time, and he walked into the
biggest.
studio one day, and I was playing the lead lines for it, and he was like, "Wow, that sounds really fucking cool. You should do that." And I turned around, and I was like, "I totally thought you'd hate that."
The chorus of that song, like,
Right.
we had entirely produced this track. It was, I mean, the mix was
Yo, it's
done,
done.
and Patrick was playing a lead line, just really screwing around. And I remember turning to him, and I was like,
I didn't think he was home.
kill the strings. I'm like, kill the strings. He's like, oh no, the mix is done. I said, no, shut them off. Play the lead line, and he did. And it in the space of about 15 minutes, the chorus of the track completely changed. Sarah got home from work, and we
Wound up reharmonizing all the vocals
reharmonized
to it,
everything.
so-
We completely redid the chorus to the song, and then we played it probably a week later. We played it
Yeah.
live.
Well, and I think practicing together is definitely one of the biggest catalysts, for forming how, even when we've written a song,
we try
how
not-
it's
we-
going
we
to
try not
develop.
to finish a piece completely and then take it live. We usually will play a song in a few different, versions
least 3 or 4 months
incantations.
live.
It's fun to
that
tweak.
we'll play it live, and then we'll go in and change things before the.
Well, it goes
it's
back
really
to that live
finalized.
aspect of things. I mean, like, we're at a point now where, like, all of the playback material is stripped of all the live keyboards. So there's a lot of room to experiment during practice and on stage.
So much,
And it's kind of a wonderful way to do a band like this because we
bass
have
and
the room to
drums are
grow.
on tape and like swooshy sounds, but so much of our keyboards are done live.
Majority
of are performed live. And we actually, it's kind of funny. We have a lot of people that have not believed that, and we have on more than one occasion invited people to sound check.
Till I get too drunk at a show, and then they totally know it's live.
Because then he fucks
No,
up
but I
really
mean,
bad.
you play a song so many times, it's
and I
not
think
going
the
to
feel
sound
is
like it
more
does on the
organic
album
live
because
of that.
it evolves and you have fun doing it different ways. You can only sing it, play it, whatever, the same
Well, and
way
it's
so
like
many
there's some stuff
times,
live that's not on the CD that
Yep.
Right.
I think that's
didn't
probably
gel
a
until
pretty
after we
regular
finally set the cutoff.
issue.
And we're like,
Yeah.
It's still
Okay,
going
we're
to sound
done.
amazing, but
Well,
At
I'm
least
a
we
very
try.
big believer in the concept that no true work of art is ever finished, simply abandoned. And
they'll get changed again. It's,
there comes a point, in the process of just by the nature of the way that you record an album and you release an album, there comes a process or a point rather when you just go, okay, this is
kill the
what's
kids.
on disc, and if we don't put it out, people are gonna fucking kill us.
well, you have to be willing to kill your children, but at the
You
same
can only
time,
do so much
you can't-
modification, Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't
Fucking
not
A.
be willing to change it if a better idea comes along
Yeah.
later. And honestly,
We try to give it a little bit of time
you
to
have
grow.
to give people a reason to come and see you too. I mean, because the bands that always impress me the most are the ones when I go see live, and I get kind of blown away because they did something different or
Right.
Oh, I love
something I
it when
don't
they
get to
do
hear
that.
unless
You
I
know,
see
you
them.
hear
I
it
mean-
the way you know it on the disc, and then you hear them tweak it a little, and it's just
It's like an Easter
it's
egg. You
it
get-
is
you get
an
access
Easter
to
egg.
that, yeah?
Let's get all nerdy. It's totally an
Well,
Easter
we
egg.
do, I mentioned the cover thing. We generally go through several different covers in the course of a year, and we even playing at this very club actually. When I think it was our first New Year's show, we covered "Baby Got Back," and it was the only reason that we did it was
I
because
felt
we were
slightly violated.
We
I
were
have
really
to admit.
intoxicated, and we've actually had so many requests to record it and release it, and we're never going to do that.
Mark is a really good white rapper. Just so you know.
I sound like one of the fat boys. It's really embarrassing.
But a version of the Lady Gaga cover might wind up on the internet. at
One
some
day,
point.
which we did not release for
I'm not
profit.
saying I don't.
Right?
have all
Yeah,
the
we
vocals,
did
but-
not pay for the rights to that. So just
And
so
there is of course actually on your compilation, not your COMA's compilation, we did a cover of "Semi an Angel."
Yeah. Indeed. All right, and let's close out with one last question here. What do you hope to do for the next level of Synapse?
Well, I think
Europe.
Coke and whores.
Coke and whores. Thank you, Sarah.
Both sexes, please.
Getting out on a real. We don't discriminate.
Right.
Getting out on I hate to use the term large scale, but I think that's really that's the ambition at least. To get out on a large scale U.S. tour with a larger acts. We are working on and negotiating with several people abroad. We would very much like to play in Europe. We have a small but kind of cultish cool following over there, and we have a lot of friends and bands abroad, and we would really love to get across the ocean, of course. But I think really the next step for us after the release of this album is touring.
Right.
You're going to see us a lot of places across the U.S. and Europe in the next 2 years.
Well, and we'd like to shorten the cycle for the next disc.
Yeah.
There's also
We're going to try for a year.
there's a remix disc
Yep.
in the works.
Really excited about
hopefully
that.
midpoint this year. We've got
Level
several submissions
2.0.
already actually came in. Yeah, Mike Hoffman hooked us up.
Oh yeah.
And there's some other people we're talking to, so that's in the bag. And I
Level
think I've got a few
2.0,
more
Cryogene
remixes.
second. Some other names we're not going to mention yet because we want it to be a surprise. There are some reasonably large names on there that we're not going to talk about yet, but
But we'd really like to do no less than 12 months for the next.
I think
the
so.
next
I think
album,
we're going to
so
target a year after
I think
this for the
that the
release of the
moral
next
here
album.
is that not all rock stars are assholes,
We're
because we know some
about
really
halfway
amazing
through the basic writing
Do you know any rock
process,
stars?
so-
Well, there's us, first of all.
But I think it's a combination of more material, spend more time touring the U.S., and start to make those first in crutches overseas.
Yep.
Some one-offs.
We're
What I like to
coming to
call
your city.
subsidized vacations. But
And also more Coke and whores.
Coke and whores. Sarah likes Coke and whores. It's actually kind of a you can't see it
Out
right
of the
now.
mouth of it. Can you believe this? I mean,
Gingers, they're really into Coke and whores. Actually, it's actually kind of a problem.
Coke and whores.
Help me.
Coke and whores.
Help me.
Coke and whores.
yes, we're the dirty ones.
Yes, they are. I'm actually a Catholic.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Mark's
Are we
totally the
done now?
innocent one. All
Thank you
right,
very
yeah,
much for
I don't
having
know.
us, guys. We really
guys.
appreciate you
Thanks
guys
for
being
coming
here
out to
tonight.
see To all of you poor people out there, thank you for watching. We know it's been difficult.
We appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
More gin and tonic.